Okay, this is part 10 of why what Senator Mitch McConnell said is wrong. He says we don't tax too little. We don't have a taxing problem. And I want to pick up here where I left off in part 9. I was talking about the Republican Party. And 95% of Republicans have signed the pledge, which is unconstitutional because it prevents congressmen from exercising their constitutional powers with an open mind without reservations. Now, you know, in sports, when you violate the rules of competition, you're suspended from competition and you have to pay a fine. Well, the Republican Party should be suspended from participating in political elections until they purge themselves of this pledge and fined. The pledge creates the one-armed congressman. You enter Congress with one arm, the power only to cut taxes, and that's what Republicans do when they get in office. They cut taxes on the wealthy. The intent of the oath of office is to enter office without reservations, with both powers at your disposal, the power to raise and lower taxes based on the facts, using reason and your conscience. Well, you can't do that if you've signed the pledge, agreed to block off tax increases to get funding for your political campaign. Now, where has the Supreme Court been on this for the last 28 years? You know that if you were chosen to be a member of a jury and you made up your mind before trial that the defendant was guilty or innocent, to please your employer or a club or a party that you're in, that would not be legal. Well, congressmen, when they sign the pledge, they do that. When you enter Congress, it's like entering a trial. You listen to the debate on the floor of the Congress, and you make up your mind based on the facts. That's not legal. The intent of the Constitution is that you're going to enter Congress with an open mind, without restrictions, and exercise both your powers based on the facts. Now let's move on here. I'm going to go to George Herbert Walker Bush here. Now that's senior. He was formerly Reagan's vice president. And at the GOP convention in 1988, in his acceptance speech, he said, read my lips, no new taxes. But he did not sign the Norquist Pledge. But after he was in office, there was, you see here, these spike in deficits. And the government needed revenue. And he broke the pledge. He added to the 28 tax rate, he raised it, he added one more. The tax rate in bracket net was 33. From 28, he added the 33 tax bracket. And let me read you what he said here. Now this is George Bush Sr. He said the rigidity of those pledges is something I don't like. Circumstances change and can't be wedded to some formula of Grover Norquist. Well, he's absolutely right. Now, I'm going to go to Bill Clinton here. He's the next president. You see, he's in blue here. He's a Democrat. And he did not sign the pledge. And he added 2 more tax rates, income tax rates, the 36 and the 39.6. And you see, he reversed this debt to GDP trend. It was going up. Since Reagan entered office, he turned it down from 57 down to 57. Now, George Bush is president. He's in red. He's a Republican. And you know what? He was either stupid, uninformed, or a con man. Here's what he said. A surplus in tax revenues, after all, means that taxpayers have been overcharged, and usually when you've been overcharged, you expect to get something back. Surplus figures counts more than any other. Now what he's referring to here is the 3 years of Clinton's budget surpluses. They weren't surpluses at all, because the national debt increased. To be a true surplus, the debt has to go down. But he used this as a ploy to buy votes. He would send you a check in the mail of up to $300 for individuals, singles, and $600 for married couples. If he was elected, that got him some votes. Now, I agree that if you have a surplus in excess of deficits over a period of years, that is the basis for a tax cut. But what is the flip side of the coin? The other half of the equation. Don't these huge deficits here count more than any other for raising taxes? Bush never reversed himself and applied reverse logic. He was a half-wit. Now let me read you something else that Bush said. My plan reduces the national debt and fast, so fast in fact that economists worry that we're going to run out of debt to retire. Now, what he's referring to here is that when he entered office here in 2001, the national debt was $5,628,000,000,000. Well, his tax cut economic plan was going to erase that debt. That's what he said. Now look, isn't that exactly what Reagan said? I just read you what he said here. The policies, where is it? The policies that we have in place to reduce the deficit steadily, surely, and completely. You know what? Instead of reducing this debt, he added $5 trillion to the national debt in 8 years. Both Reagan and Bush duped and betrayed voters. Let me read you something else here. It Bush said. He said every dollar of Social Security and the Medicare tax revenue would be reserved for Social Security and Medicare. Did he do that? No. His tax cuts here, his 201 and 203 tax cuts, 50% went to the top 1%. They did not produce enough tax revenue to fully fund these two wars up here. And what did he do? He looted the Social Security Trust Fund of $1,379 billion. Now, I want to remind you of something that Franklin D. Roosevelt said in an address to Congress. He said that he would work within the framework, the spirit and intent of the American Constitution. Well, George Bush, he worked outside of the framework, the spirit and intent of the American Constitution. He signed the Northwest No Tax Increase Pledge, which prevented him from raising taxes on these two wars that he started. Now, I frankly don't understand why he's not in prison. For all the crimes he's committed while in office. I'll give you a short list here. He stole money from the U.S. Treasury to buy votes on a false premise. The false premise is there was no surplus. Actually, there was, going back to 1981, 20 years of deficits, totaling almost $5 trillion. There was no money to refund. In fact, taxpayers underpaid on their taxes. Another thing that Bush did, he lied and made false statements to voters. You know, if a CEO of a corporation does that to shareholders, that's fraud. Bush lied, claiming that his tax cuts produced revenues and lowered deficits. But what he didn't tell you, he didn't include in his budget the amount of money that he looted from the Social Security Trust Fund. That was off budget. Now, when you misappropriate the money in the paid in surplus in the Social Security Trust Fund for other purposes than Social Security, that is stealing. The last time I heard, George Bush wants to make believes his tax cuts should be made permanent. If they're made permanent, he can never repay the Social Security Trust Fund, because they've been in effect now for 8 years while he was in office and 4 years while Obama's been in office, and they've added $11 trillion to the national debt. Okay. Another crime that Bush committed, he didn't raise taxes to pay for these two wars he started. Now, all presidents, going back to Lincoln, raised taxes to pay for wars. Not Bush. He cut taxes. Now that is legal stealing. That's abandonment of duty. Now he sent these men here to die in these two wars that he started. They lost their limbs. and suffered these serious brain injuries and burns and these roadside bombs. And back home, he gave to himself and his multi-billionaire Vice President Dick Cheney cabinet, who are all millionaires except one, an executive, corporate executive, huge tax cuts on dividends and capital gains. That's legal stealing. My time is up? Okay.